Greetings fellow Dagorans and welcome to another Mafia 3 news update. In this one is an article breakdown, but an article by Steve Farrelly on AusGamers.com, and it was titled Mafia 3 Preview and Interview Feature, Building a Brave, Bold and Brutal New World with Executive Producer Andrew Wilson. Okay, and first before we go into the actual article, I just want to apologise about my throat. I've got a slight sore throat and I don't know if you can hear it or not, but if that has an effect I apologise. So, anyway, I thought the way I'd do it is I read through the article and I broke down and picked out quotes from the important parts which I thought showed things that we haven't seen before, and I thought I'd talk about them, give my opinions on what it could mean for the game. Okay, so let's go straight into it. The first quote that I picked out was because this person, Steve Farrelly, did play the demo. He had a gameplay demo at Gamescom, and this article is a bit late to be honest with you, but he was able to get it out, and he says, the game setting allows for exploration of the Titular organisation in a way that has never been done before, but it is on point, which means it's got a way of exploring the Mafia that is different than the first two games, but it is done really well. I'm going to be interested in how they do it. I was expecting it to be done differently because, you know, we're not actually a part of building through the Italian Mafia at the start, we're actually fighting against them, so I'm going to guess that it's going to be shown in a different light, maybe from news reports and word on the street kind of thing, if you're kind of hearing about what they've done, which is going to be interesting. One of the first quotes from Andy Wilson, the executive producer, says, there's two interesting things about the period. First, it's the age when the Mafia stops meaning the traditional Italian mob, and you start seeing a lot more competing influences, particularly in the US, varying combinations for struggles of power, which is very, very true. As the Haitian mobsters were starting to get popular around this time, and the Irish gangsters were starting to have a big foothold in the American crime family situation at this time. So he's definitely done a good job here of backing up his point that they're going more for the black mob and not just going for the Italian mob, which is very interesting. And then he goes on to say that the city choice was fairly easy because, you know, of the big events that happened in this time with the civil rights movement and everything. And it's something that we could kind of guess because, you know, New Orleans is a very good city to pick. It's on the coast. It's in this big South divide time of the civil rights movement, and it's going to be very interesting to explore. Okay, this is one of the big parts of the interview that I wanted to bring up. It was very early on. It was on about the demo that they was able to explore and see what the game has to behold. So he says, an example that we saw in our demo set Lincoln Clay, the game's protagonist or anti-hero, to task bringing down a drug den or cistern. It was a huge interior space that required no loading from the game, purportedly had numerous entry points. Okay, it's great that this game has got not going to have no loading from, you know, entering buildings and things like that. You know, it's a lot like Assassin's Creed was in that sense. You know, once you're out into the world, there's no loading screens going in and out of buildings. We're not having a Bloodborne effect on this. And it looks like they're really getting to grips with the current gen technology, and it's using it well, which I'm very, very happy about. And loading screens I can live with, but once they get too much, it kind of ruins my enjoyment of the game. So I'm very happy that the game is not having that point. Plus that he says that the place has numerous entry points. So again, it's like this kind of Assassin's Creed Unity thing where you can go different ways into taking out an assassination, but in this case, you know, we're taking out a drug den, so there's loads of different ways we can enter. We can go straight through the front door and go all guns blazing, or try and go through windows, or try and find the back door or anything. There's loads of different ways we can do it. And he says all these entry points are available to the player based on different types of gameplay, from information gathering to playing out, stumbling upon them. Initially, he went in as stealth as all get up, but as things tend to do in gameplay demos, the shit hit the fan, as we have seen in the... I suppose that's going to be the one that we see in the little gameplay snippets in the Jazz Club, which is going to be on your screen right now. Okay, so then we go on to about the actual mechanics of, you know, when someone gets hit, does it have an effect on their movement, or does it have an effect on the person, or does it just show, like it does in most cover shooter games, shows them just getting hit and going down and getting back up. But he says, if you shoot a guy in the leg, he'll hobble, and if you shoot someone in the shoulder, he'll spin around. It makes the combat feel a lot more credible, which is a small thing, but it has a big impact. Like, especially in games like Dead Space, you know, where you shoot people in the leg and you see them now struggling to walk, or like you say, you see them shooting in the hand and they can only hold the gun with one arm now. You know, having this thing, it may not sound that much, but it's something that when you play the game, it makes a big difference because it's one of them things that you notice without realizing. And I'm very happy, it's got a big chance to do it with this current gen technology, and it seems like it's taken it to the full extent, which is makes me very happy. And it's, the little things that make the big difference in games, in open world games, and this is definitely one of those. So we continue with the talk of the combat and the idea of the takedowns in the game, which is something that's very new. And Wilson says the takedowns are also contextual. It's not scripted. We mocapped every instance, and the takedowns themselves are based on what weapon you're currently equipped with, and of the 2 weapons you currently have selected as well. So which weapon you're equipped with, which weapon the AI is equipped with, and what type of archetype the AI character is. So there's a big matrix of what these takedowns will be. We'll also be adding in stealthy and non-lethal stuff in there as well. So maybe the takedowns aren't as easily in my head as I thought they would be. The spear we thought would be a custom one where you can just run at someone and spear them. But it seems like if someone's got a big Tommy gun pointing at you, you're not exactly going to be running up and be able to spear them because the big gun's in the way. So there's definitely a lot of different types of takedowns, hitting people in the back of the head if you're behind them, stealth ones, stabbing them in the face. There's lots of different things that we can do. And when things get repetitive, it gets a little bit more boring and a little bit stale. So I'm very happy that, that's not going to be the case. Wilson was talking about the brutality of the game, and he says that it was the side of the game that he was not completely expecting, because everything we've been shown up to that point was more about life of the game world around you. Police stopping minority groups on the streets for no reason, servicemen walking around, drunks and layabouts laying around. The place is as alive as New Orleans. I've been fortunate enough to visit only with a true New York vibe, thanks to the area which the game is set. So we saw this in the gameplay snippets that I showed in the gameplay analysis. We saw a lot of people on the pavements walking up and down in different directions, doing different things. The world is definitely alive, much more so than what is Mafia 2, which again is a little thing in these open world games which makes it much more entertaining and makes it feel like a city, which I'm very happy about. We are now getting to the stage where we can have these high population cities, and it definitely seems that in Mafia 3 we're going to get that. And then when he goes on to talk about the actual city and the districts of the game, he says that there's a whole bunch of different districts and density, and that changes from district to district. The French Quarter is a very narrow street and confined, but we'll obviously still want to make it good for driving, so we try to get the balance right between having it close quarters and old worldy versus being able to drive down the street. There's also more industrial areas of the world that lend them to some of the bigger hideouts. And then the Bayou is very large. It's on the southern end of the city, and we're going to be doing some very different types of activities down there. You've got boats in the game. So first of all, I want to say that, the idea that we're getting these different districts to have an actual change between them is very, very, very good. The French Quarter sounds different, than the industrial areas. We get this a little bit in Mafia 2, but not on a big scale. We get this a lot in Grand Theft Auto 5, which was something that really stood out for me, the changes between the areas of the city. I'm very happy that Mafia 3's got this, so when we go to explore different areas of the city, they've got a staple in the neighbourhood, which is going to be a lot like 60s New Orleans, which is great. And also the fact that we've got boats in the game, which was something that I wanted, and I said in my first video that I made on Mafia 3, I believe. I wanted boats, the big fan boats that you see in everything that's always in Florida or Louisiana or that general area of America where you got swamps and stuff. It's going to be exciting to be able to explore them. Going up and down the Mississippi on the massive fan boat is going to be great. Okay, so a little thing that Andy Wilson said, which was kind of a surprise, is that Andy also confirms that there will be car ownership and that it's tied to a reward system with customization, but they didn't actually entail what it's divulged. A reward system like car ownership, it definitely seems strange. Maybe it's something like owning a car business, but I can't see what's going to be. Maybe having the nicest car, having an online leaderboard system kind of thing. I'm going to have more information. I can't really comment on it right now, but it's put my ears. I want to find out more of what it's going to entail. Okay, so people began wondering if there's going to be a co-op or multiplayer addition to the game, and there isn't. And Wilson says this: "We are single-player enthusiasts. It's how I grew up, and Hayden is the same. And at this point, these games are so big that you can't split your focus." Hayden Blackman is the lead gameplay designer, by the way. I'm kind of caught in between two ways in this. I would love a co-op, especially in the kind of games where, they've got these big open worlds where you're taking down fortresses. All you got to do is just, do the Far Cry 4 way. Just invite someone into your game and then go around and do stuff with them. It would be great. It would be unbelievable. I can understand them completely focusing on the single player. And if they was going to have a multiplayer, part of that development time is going to go away from the single player into the multiplayer aspect. And In games like these, the only one I can think of a very successful multiplayer is Grand Theft Auto 5. There's games like Just Cause 2, Far Cry, Last of Us that have got really, really good multiplayers, but people don't really play them as much. And it's because, when they pick up these games, they play them predominantly for the single player, whereas Grand Theft Auto is very much different. So, I have no complaints that they're not going for the multiplayer, but because it's going to give us a better single player game completely, because, with more development time is focused on that, it's going to increase its value and make it a lot better. Whereas, if they did a multiplayer on the side and tacked it on, but it wouldn't feel as good, and to be honest, I'd rather have no multiplayer than a bad multiplayer, to be honest with you, so I've got no complaints here. And then he leaves with the final quote, and writer of the article, Mr. Steve Farrelly, and says, "But I honestly walked away from my demo when chat with Andy a believer, and there is no hesitation in calling my Mafia 3 my game of the show at Gamescom. From here on out, 2016, and those big fan votes can't come quick enough." So, Mafia 3 is his game of the show at Gamescom, which has got me, people like these, they see a lot of game demos, and, it's definitely saying, this is showed off the best. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be an incredible game, but what they showed was very, very strong, and that the chat that you had with the developer was very good. And he also commented on the enthusiasm of the developer, and that it really struck him, which is something that I said in my Hayden Blackman interview analysis, and they are a very passionate development company about these games and about Mafia 3. And Mafia 3 definitely does look promising, and the setting looks fantastic. And, getting people like this on board, and these are people that see a lot of games, so, when something like this jumps out at them, it shows strong signs of the game looking promising. And I'm very excited to be able to see more of Mafia 3. Yeah, please, if you haven't, there's a lot more in this interview, but a lot of what is in there is stuff that I've covered before in other videos. So I will leave a link in the description below. If you don't want to fish through my videos, you can go and read the article there. Also, leave a comment of what you believe about some of the things in the game. Do you like the idea of districts? Do you like the idea that we're getting boats in Mafia 3, which is very exciting? And also, leave a comment of what you believe of the article as well, if you've read the article, and what did you think of it. Also, I've got a lot of stuff coming up. If you go to iTunes or Podomatic.com or Stitcher Radio, we've got the GNM podcast, which is the first ever episode of the GNM podcast on these areas, and it's going to be, what it is a podcast on gaming and movies, and it's between me and my friend Nathan, who take part in it. So definitely download that, and if you haven't got any access to any of them platforms, you can just watch it on YouTube right here on the channel. And also, leave your comments below. Ask me any questions you want to have a debate. Also, if you've got any email questions, email them to degoratvc@gmail.com. Also, follow me on Twitter at degorac. So, yeah, I think that's everything. And subscribe to join the fellow Degorans. Goodbye.